wait is over.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the studios in the wrestling capital of the South, it's another terrific episode of The BENGEBESTER Show. Please welcome your host, Tony Binge.
He talks right, he knows his stuff, and he knows how to make a girl laugh.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the BENGEBESTER Show, coming to you right here in the wrestling capital of the South, Charlotte, North Carolina. And I am excited about this week's show as we're going to be talking about two of my favorite things, pro wrestling and rock and roll. And, man, it's going to be a fun show for everybody. Of course, I can't get this show started until I bring out my co-host, co-conspirator. I'm talking about Mr. Rock and Roll Playboy himself, Chris Plano. Chris, what is going on?
Hey, Tony, how are you? It's another week. Wow, the weeks keep rolling by. I can't believe we're into the month of September and excited about tonight's show. We're ready to roll.
Man, I'm telling you, it's been a crazy summer. It seems like summer went by so quickly this year. It just seemed like yesterday, man, we were planning going to the stadium tour. That came and went so quickly. And now here we are getting ready for fall, and the last weekend. I guess a lot of people consider this the last weekend of summer. A lot of us are going on vacation. I know you're heading down to the beach, and I might sneak down there myself. I'm ready for a break, man.
I know, man. Labor Day weekend is upon us, and it's the unofficial end of summer. Yeah, the summer months have slipped away, and can even feel a little crispness of fall if you wake up early before the sun comes up.
Yeah, I know. It's getting towards my favorite time of year. I love fall, and of course, the month of September. As we get into the months ahead, part of our subjects is going to be talking WCW's Fall Brawl. And we'll be discussing those in the next coming weeks. But tonight, I thought what we would do is kind of do a split show. Part of the show, we'll talk about the anniversary of Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood. And then, of course, our classic flashback is going to be a classic WWF house show from September the 2nd, 1985. And we'll be talking about that later on in the show. But Chris, before we start talking about Dr. Feelgood, I came across this today online, and I want to play it for all of our listeners and for you too. I know a lot of people may or may not remember this as Motley Crue is touring right now. But in 1990, Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses, not really just the bands, but more or less the lead singers, Axl Rose and Vince Neil, were in a little feud. And I think even Vince challenged Axl to a fight at Atlantic City. Of course, that never happened. But Chris, imagine like today if something like that went down. So many promoters would put that on pay-per-view so fast. Of course, now that's if the guys would show up, because I think that was kind of the problem there in 1980 or 1990. Vince and Axl both went on MTV, talked trash to each other. But never met. From what I understand, Vince sent Axl the address and the time, and Axl no-showed. So I'm not sure. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, definitely a different time than today. But now with social media, Tony, and everything, it's crazy. I mean, that thing could have blew up. I mean, just from a social media standpoint alone, without them even seeing each other, but. In today's day and age, back then it was just all on television pretty much, and you had to tune in or maybe hear it on the radio, and that's how stuff was promoted and circulated around. And then maybe later that month, it made a magazine on your, your local convenience store or magazine store down the road. And now, so absolutely no. Hey, Vince isn't going to back down from anyone. Guns N' Roses was, I'm not going to say new to the scene. They were on the scene for several years, but, definitely making a move back then as well with that Appetite for Destruction album and They had a lot going for them. So, but yeah, hey, who would have known? But I think in today's day and age, it would have been a social media kind of a circus.
Yeah, I think so. But right now, fans, we're going to take a little break. I'm going to play that clip for everybody, and of course, refresh mine and Chris's memory. take each other down memory lane. But here it is, right here, fans.
Of rock and roll was my feud with Axl.
It was a feud that had been going on for the longest time.
I was married, and my wife, we went to a club, and Izzy tried to pick up on her, and he was drunk, and he kicked her. And she told me what happened. And I said, the next time I see that guy, I'm going to kill him. Well, the next time I saw him was at the MTV Awards.
I was at the MTV Video Awards in 1989. After the show was over, I walked backstage, and there was this huge scene going on.
I went up to Izzy. He said, as you touch my wife again, I'll kill you. And he's all, you, and I knocked him out.
Axl was not happy with this, so Axl stood up for Izzy. I'm going to kick your ass, Vince, if I ever see you. And Vince going, you call it. Anywhere you want it, I'll do it.
I can remember Vince Neil challenging Axl Rose to a fight on TV.
Axl, if you're watching this, I want to challenge you to a fight. I'm going to give you the time, and I'm going to give you the place, and there's no backing out now, buddy.
Some people lose track of reality.
It's time to put up or shut up. I'm really tired of your mouth. And I think a lot of people are.
And the fight never, ever happened, but it was a good feud for many years.
What do you think about that, Chris? That was a whole different day, man.
It'd be a firestorm from there.
Yeah, I think so. Which is very interesting to me. With all that going on back then, but any event that I thought that was funny, and I wanted to share that on the podcast. But right now, I want us to talk about the one of the coolest albums that came out in 1989, but it was actually released to the world September the 2nd, 1990. Dr. Feelgood, Motley Crue's fifth studio album. It was released originally. The single was released on August the 28th, but the album was actually released on September the 2nd, 1990. Dr. Feelgood topped the Billboard 200 chart, making it the band's only album to claim that position. It was the first album Motley Crue recorded after their quest for sobriety in 1989. In addition to being Motley Crue's best-selling album, it is highly regarded by music critics and fans as the band's best studio album ever. This was also the band's last album to be recorded with lead singer Vince Neil until 1997 when Generation Swine came out. But a lot of, I think during Dr. Feelgood tour is when the band was not only clean and sober, but I think that being clean and sober put a strain on all of them, especially Vince, because it was like Vince was always being, under the microscope of Nicky during this time, Chris.
Yeah, it was a great album, and several documentaries on Motley Crue and their history. But this was the album where, in the tour where these guys had to stay sober, or the band was just going to almost come apart at the seams, it seems, at times, from what I've heard.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was one of those times, man, where they were just, they knew that they had like one of the best albums to date. And of course, a lot of hits came off of Dr. Feelgood. Of course, the title track, Dr. Feelgood, it was released, like I said earlier, August the 28th as a single, and then it followed up in November the 20th, 1989 with Kickstart My Heart, and then of course February, Without You, then again May the 28th, Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away, the greatest breakup song ever written, and then the last single off that album was Same Old Situation, which was released on July 31st, 1990. Prior to this album released, most Motley Crue albums that came out only had like two 2 singles, off the album. And this one had 5, Chris. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great album. It was, probably one of the best albums, if not, one of the best album. But Dr. Feelgood, you got Kickstart My Heart, Without You, Same Old Situation, Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away. I mean, all those songs are on the set list today, and they've always been staples on the set list. I like the song She Goes Down as well, but they don't play that live and in concert anymore. Maybe not very much in the past, but it's a great album, and it came out at a time, where the rock and roll scene was about to shift drastically from, the 80s rock into the 90s invasion. And, the album stood and has stand the test of time.
Yeah, it really has. And even, to this day, when you go see Motley Crue live, they play a lot of hits off of Dr. Feelgood. They play Dr. Feelgood, Kickstart My Heart, Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away, and Same Old Situation most of the time. So a great album. And incidentally, Dr. Feelgood was my first Motley Crue concert. So they actually played in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the day after my birthday, March the 24th, 1990. I went and got to see Motley Crue play, and Faster Pussycat opened up for them. And I don't remember a whole lot about that show other than it was friggin' loud. And and I remember Tommy Lee's drum set was like a drum solo where his drums had all these tweeters and subwoofers, and as he went across Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum, I'm like, holy crap. And I told my buddy, I said, dude, look, now the people that got crappy seats now got front row. So it was a great concept.
Absolutely. It really kept everyone engaged in the arena. And I've been to the LJVM Coliseum in many capacities, whether it be for a concert or for wrestling or for hockey or whatever it might be. There's not a bad seat in the house for a venue that size.
Definitely not. And in 1990 concerts, I remember back in those days, you couldn't just go online because there was no line. You had to physically go to either the box office or I remember back in 1990, me and my friend, we went to Peaches records and CDs, and they actually had a Ticketmaster outlet inside the record store. So I remember we went in there, we bought the record, and actually I bought the CD, and then we walked over to the ticket booth and bought each of us bought a ticket, and he said, "Man, happy birthday! It's going to be a fun birthday for you." I said, "Yeah, I can't wait." And we went, we had a good time, and from that moment on, man, I was hooked. I was like, man, I got to go to these Motley Crue concerts, and as we talked about before on the podcast, I went to the quote final show back in 2016, and then of course this summer you and I attended the stadium tour, and I know coming up in just a couple of weeks, the tour is ending there in Las Vegas. I was hoping to maybe make it out there, but I think I'm going to hold off till next year and see what kind of tour that they actually go out on. I know you spoke about this quite a lot. That you feel next year all these bands are going to be going out on another stadium tour, especially seeing exactly how productive and how successful this stadium tour has been.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of bands looking just to see how this tour is doing, and it's not even just this tour. I obviously the tour we're talking about is definitely 80s focused, but you got a lot of bands out there doing stadium tours. I mean, look, the Red Hot Chili Peppers are in Charlotte tonight at the stadium, and you got Elton John out there, and Billy Joel, and Kenny Chesney, and Garth Brooks. I mean, there's a lot of stadium tours happening, throughout the country, obviously the Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Poison, Joan Jett is totally an 80s focus. But I think there's other 80s bands, 70s bands that are out there taking a peek saying, maybe we can give this a shot. And we know, Neil Schon with Journey has flirted with it maybe for in 2023. I'm confident we're going to see all these bands off this 80s stadium tour. I'm pretty confident we're going to see them back out next summer in some capacity. So I think people are just taking notice, where are the markets at? Where are the hot cities? And may want to give it a shot, and you kind of see where everyone's at, but it's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, I agree. I think next year it's going to be wide open. COVID's going to be behind us completely at this point. And I think the world's going to be back to normal, and we're just going to get out there, and all these bands are going to tour, and we're going to be just like we were a couple of years ago, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully so. That's the goal. And hey, some bands have even held off to 2023. Some of these bands again are out there making up dates from a year or two ago, or just trying to see what they can garner. So it's still an interesting dynamic within the live concert scene, even throughout 2022 and the remainder of this year. And I'm not saying it's as cautious as last year, but it still has an interesting dynamic to it. And some of these bands, like I said, are playing still makeup dates from a year or 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, they are. And but I'm excited, man. I can't wait. I'm hoping to catch another concert or two before winter hits us. I was hoping to make it out to Rod Stewart last week when he was in Charlotte, but I had prior engagements with my son that I'd forgot about, so I bought a ticket and I kind of ate that ticket, but that's okay. No big deal. I had to go and celebrate with my son as he took swimming lessons and he learned to swim, and so we had to go out to eat that night and party, and so he chose to go out to eat at a Japanese steakhouse here in Lake Norman, North Carolina. And Chris, I got to share this funny story real fast. We're sitting in there. They bring out my drinks, they bring out the soup and the salad, and I'm sitting there eating. And the waiter walks by me, going to the table, that was next to us. They had about probably 15 people there. He had a big tray of drinks, and guess what his drinks ended up at? On my back.
Oh boy!
He fell. I don't know what happened, but he stumbled. He hit me in the back with the tray of drinks, beer, cocktails. Man, they're all down my back, and I was, the owner came out. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm just wet. I'm okay. But it was funny. My son was like, "Dad, you're all wet now." I'm like, "Yep, sure am, man." but I didn't let it stop me, man. I still enjoyed my filet mignon cooked right there on the hibachi grill with the shrimp and the noodles and the rice. And man, it was fun celebrating a milestone with my son. So that was a good time. Speaking of good times, just a couple of weeks from now, September the 24th, NAWA Championship Wrestling invades the American Legion Hall in Lenoir, North Carolina. And right now, I want to take a quick break and inform our listeners at home about this tremendous show coming to Lenoir, North Carolina.
Sure to share the podcast on your favorite social media channels.
The NAWA Live Professional Wrestling returns to Lenoir, North Carolina on Saturday, September the 24th. Bell time, 7 p.m. On this card, you will see in action Chris Thunder Anderson, Bates versus Fury, Maverick Moore taking on Jackson Cage, Mike Mon versus Mason. For the NAWA Tag Team titles, Max Carnage and Ted will defend against Robert Steve and Allen. And for the NAWA Heavyweight title rematch, the champion Big Donnie defends against former champion Golden Gladiator number 2. And then, fans, No disqualification, no rules. There must be a winner. Hair versus mask. AJ Frost taking on the Moonshine Express's B&B. That's Saturday, September 24th at the American Legion Hall, 401 Main Street Northwest, Lenore, North Carolina. Doors open at 6 p.m., bell time 7 p.m. Tickets, adults 10. Children 12 and under $5, and kids under 5 are free. Come out and support NAWA. All right, fans, we are back here on the show, and Chris, NAWA is getting ready to take off with another tremendous event there in Lenore. I can't wait for that. The promoters have not signed me to a match yet, which kind of pisses me off. So I'm going to have to, show up and show out, I think.
Tony, September 24th, the Lenore American Legion Hall is going to be on fire. And, man, NAWA is back. It's full steam ahead. I know all those guys are chomping at the bit to get, not only back in the ring again, they are going full steam ahead, but more than ever, doing their best every single night of the week because they want to have that gold around their waist. And Tony, for you, hey, you just call out the locker room one more time. I know you have no problem with it.
No,
you might even call 5 of the toughest guys out in the crowd to get in the ring and take you on and take care of business as well.
You never know. I'll call out 5 guys. I beat them up, and I might take their wives home. You never know.
Yeah, because if no one wants to come out of the locker room, there's any of the 5 of the toughest, baddest guys want to come in the ring. And I know you've taken care of business before once or twice with that angle as well.
Couple times, man. Couple times. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a good time. NAWA is getting rocking and rolling again, and I can't wait to be there in Lenore. And I know they've got another show coming up the following week, October the 1st, and we'll talk more about that as the weeks progress.
Wow.
But right now, fans, we are going to take it to the main event of our podcast, what everybody's tuned in to see and hear about, classic wrestling. That's what we talk here on our show. So right now, fans, we are going to be taking it back to 1985. Coming up next here on the Binge Buster Show.
The recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
All right, fans, we are back. That right there, Chris, was a classic music from the WWF from 1985. And today, our show, as we talk on our podcast about our classic flashback, takes us to September the 2nd, 1985 at the Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio, as the WWF had a house show right there in Ohio. Some of the matches, as we're going to break them down really quickly. Opening match, Leapin' Lanny Poffo taking on Iron Mike Sharp. Chris, what do you recall about these two classic guys?
I mean, I remember Iron Mike Sharp from back in the day when my dad used to take me to the old WWF wrestling cards in New Haven, Connecticut, or Hartford, Connecticut. Iron Mike Sharp would always be in the opening match or two with that. He'd always have that right arm with that leather around that arm, and you never knew if it was loaded around the wrist or the forearm area, but Iron Mike Sharp, what a great journeyman, for the WWF. A lot of people think he should be in the Hall of Fame with the World Wrestling Federation. A lot of the under guys from back in the day are worthy maybe of a nod or a nomination to the Hall of Fame. And Leapin' Lanny Poffo, went through several character changes within the WWF. Obviously, brother to Randy Savage, and I'm sure a great opening match. I mean, Iron Mike Sharp's job was to totally get heat in the ring as a match opener, and Lanny being the crowd favorite, it's almost like the perfect combination to get settled in your seat. A match like that could go a myriad of ways, even to a time limit draw, just to keep the people intrigued and get them in their seats for what is the remainder of the evening.
Yeah, and then the next match is kind of a good opener. Moondog Spot taking on Steve Lombardi. I know Steve Lombardi was he was always on TV, putting over the big stars. So that was another cool popcorn match. Get your popcorn, your drink, get in your seat. Now the next match it's gonna be cooking. And what a lot of people don't understand, especially if you're younger now, but in 1985, the Junkyard Dog was over. I mean, he was over like big time. And in this match with him, the Junkyard Dog taking on Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., the father of Randy Orton. I know this match had to be tremendous.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Cowboy Bob Orton, still very much in the angle with Roddy Piper at this time in 85. I mean, we're going 5-6 months off of the first WrestleMania here with this particular house show. Cincinnati was always a hot town for the WWF, with Cleveland and Cincinnati and, in the Ohio area. And JYD was hot, at that time as well, just with his gimmick and Bob Orton was even doing the cast on the arm for the longest time, and probably was for this match as well.
Oh, yeah.
So Bob Orton just knew how to bring the heat, and he wouldn't have to do much. Just with the reputation of the Junkyard Dog in there and JYD, I'm sure in this particular match was probably on the receiving end of not some legal moves both in and out of the ring.
Yeah, for sure. Next match takes us to another big guy, King Kong Bundy, another big name in 1985 WWF television. Taking on Swede Hansen.
Boy, yeah, Bundy, it was obviously, his size in the WWF. That's what Vince liked. Vince back then needed muscle guys or just overall big guys in the WWF, and Bundy definitely fit in during this time. And Swede, was creeping up there in age a little bit, at that point. And, but obviously had a spot on the show. And, with Bundy, maybe a good mid-card match. I mean, Swede definitely with the old timers, carried, some weight. I don't think Swede was definitely full-time with the WWF, but maybe was doing some spot appearances, at this time, maybe just depending where they were, in the country and touring and things of that nature. But sure, he gave Bundy all he wanted, that evening with his experience in the ring.
Yeah, I'm sure. And incidentally, Swede Hansen was actually born in New Jersey, but he died a Carolina boy, Chris. When he passed away in February of 2002, he was 68 years old, and he was living there right down the road from you and I in Columbia, South Carolina. So he was a huge mainstay in pro wrestling. I think he had probably his better run in Jim Crockett Promotions in the late 70s. But definitely a neat match here on this house show. Next one had to be a barn burner, as Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was taking on the magnificent Don Morocco. I remember when these two had a short feud, but I remember it was very good. I always enjoyed seeing Steamboat and Morocco wrestle each other. They always had good chemistry, I thought.
Yeah, and I know we've gone through several matches already, and I'm sure, with this particular house show, that this was on the circuit as part of their what they would consider an A-level card. I'm sure that there was definitely interviews and storylines leading up to this match. I mean, no matter who stepped into the ring with Don Morocco, he was going to make you look good, no matter what. Leading up to the match, the trash talking, Ricky Steamboat needs no introduction in any arena at all. So, it's going to be a great match. And Morocco at this time was still very much viable within the WWF. And, his career speaks for itself.
Yeah, definitely. They both those guys had a great long career there in the WWF. Now we're getting ready to break down our last two matches. During this time, I used to love seeing these two tag teams go at it. The British Bulldogs, Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid, taking on the Hart Foundation of Bret Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. The British Bulldogs will defeat the Hart Foundation. And I'm sure during this time, the Bulldogs were the World Tag Team Champions, and this was a house show to kind of build heat for the upcoming title change.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing back then, Tony, and you can relate to this with the NWA house shows is, whether it was the Intercontinental title or it was the WWF tag team titles or the World Heavyweight title, it was a big deal if it was coming to your town. So in this match was no exception. The British Bulldogs and somewhat of a young Hart Foundation here as well. So a great match. And for a city like Cincinnati, the tag team titles, anything can happen. It was a house show. Again, I think the WWF, obviously, we talked about this was, 6 months after the first WrestleMania that took place earlier in '85. So, they were really reaping off of a lot of that steam and that momentum. So overall, and Cincinnati is a hot wrestling town back in the day as well, and the NWA went to Cincinnati many a times as well. So it was kind of a crossover city for professional wrestling when there were still territories in place. Cincinnati definitely was an overlap city for several promotions.
Yeah, it was, and I know a lot of companies. I think even maybe Mid South or somebody also went to Ohio a few times. So definitely right there mixed in that hotbed of 80s wrestling. Now going to our main event on this show, as the WWF Heavyweight Champion of the World, the Immortal Hulk Hogan. He wasn't known as the Immortal Hulk Hogan yet. He was just Hulk Hogan, and he was in the middle of his feud with Roddy Piper. Of course, this match ends in a DQ. As we all know, Piper never let Hogan pin him, and Hogan never let Piper pin him until they got to the WCW years later. But this match will go 9 minutes and 25 seconds, and probably one of the coolest 9 minutes and 25 seconds of 1985, seeing these two guys go at it. I'm sure at some point we probably got Steamboat and Bob Orton or Junkyard Dog and Bob Orton mixed in with this finish. But think about that for a minute, Chris. If we could go back to 1985 and Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper actually put their egos to the side and done real business, and maybe Hogan dropped the title to Piper, and then they switch it back at a WrestleMania. I think that would have drew a ton of money.
Absolutely. A lot of egos in place here. Hogan, very particular, who he wrestled, on the circuit and what the feud was at, and Piper, his history prior to coming to WWF, spoke for itself in the NWA and even prior to that. For Cincinnati, I mean, this was a house show. Hogan at this time was primarily working, the closed circuit television shows. He was working the TV tapings, obviously, once a month with WWF, so he was on TV every week. But then Hogan was selective on the cities that he went to. They went to the big markets, and I'm sure the Hogan-Piper feud went around. This is a typical match for Hogan. Back then when it was a house show and not on television, his matches, 8, 10, 12 minutes at the most. It was an appearance. People saw him. I'm 100% confident Bob Orton got involved in this match. I didn't read the context behind it, so I would think there was a 2-on-1, at least at one point in this match, him coming from the locker room, and probably, like you said, JYD or Steamboat probably came in to even it up. Someone definitely did to even it up, and then it ended up in the traditional double DQ. Hogan primarily had 3 different matches. He either had the one he was going to win, we're going to double DQ this thing, or it's going to be some kind of a reversal. So I'm sure this match played out many different cities, over a several month period.
Yeah, I'm sure it did, and I'm sure everyone involved done really well.
Oh yeah,
putting it over, and then of course drawing money. So, but man,
this was definitely. I'd be interested to see if the WWF was running anywhere else that particular day, but this was definitely the A card. That night or that day or weekend. I'd be interested to see. I'm sure they were running another card probably somewhere in the air in the U.S., but it'd be interesting to see who was on it. But I would say at this point, this was probably their A lineup. It was with Hogan on it, obviously, and then
right.
It'd be interesting to see who would be in a B show, which I would think maybe Savage, and maybe some other wrestlers that come into mind, Iron Sheik and some others. But it'd be interesting to see if there was a B show run somewhere. But this was definitely the A lineup.
Yeah, definitely the A town with Hogan and Piper on the main event. I wish I could go back to 1985 and attend that, because I'm sure that was a fun show to be at.
Yeah, and you look at some of those guys. I mean, the guys on the undercard, they were all fighting for positions. They knew, Vince had an A show, a B show, and maybe even a C show in some smaller towns. And you knew if you were on the card with Hogan, that was the locker room to be in. And for someone like a Moondog Spot and an Iron Mike Sharp and those guys, those are paydays for them.
Yeah.
You're wrestling in front of 10,000, probably Cincinnati, probably a house of, 12, 13, 14,000 probably. With Hogan there, I mean, so
easily.
So that's the show you wanted to be on, and so they're all vying for positions because there's only so many spots on a say a 7-match show.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure during this time they probably worked here, and probably the very next day they were somewhere else, halfway across the United States. Because we all know,
I could see them.
They were definitely traveling a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if they were in Cincinnati, I could see them next day. St. Louis, Chicago, maybe I don't know, to shoot over to Philadelphia, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But that would not be uncommon, to do. So certainly. But I think back then all they knew is if Hogan's on the card and I'm on it, I'm in the right locker room, and I better bring my A game to that ring, because if not, someone else is going to have that spot. Yeah, if I'm on the undercard, real quick, like too. You better believe it, without a doubt.
Well, man, that was I enjoyed talking about that. That was I like those old house shows, especially the WWF ones, because I never was part of those growing up as a kid. I know you were. But I wasn't. I was always privy to the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, or NWA Jim Crockett Promotions, that was really the only, other than a couple of Ken Spence shows that I went to as a kid. But for the most part, all the wrestling I ever saw live was Jim Crockett Promotions. So I would love to. I wish I could go back in time and attend an old WWF house show. Now, I did go to a few WWE house shows in the late '90s, but I would love to have been back in the '80s and saw like the Hogans and the Pipers and the Leaping Lannies and Junkyard Dogs.
Oh man, it was, Tony, it was a time where, and I knew as a kid growing up, when I was a teenager back in, the mid '80s, the early '80s, where I lived, the world title didn't come every month,
Right.
But when it came, like when Bob Backlund was coming, Hogan was coming, Pedro Morales, okay, the world title's on the line. Okay, this is the you knew the big guy. And then they would have other shows where, it would be the top guys, but not like the world title was on the line.
Right. Yeah.
There might be, Vince would bring Andre, Andre would come, or Haystack Calhoun, or, he would bring other entities in, where to fill those voids. So you still went because wrestling was coming to town.
Right. Yeah.
You still went, but you kind of took the good with the bad. If you, where I lived, where if you wanted to go see the world title every month, you went to Madison Square Garden in New York, and the WWF was there every month. Kind of like Greensboro or Atlanta,
right,
when NWA was touring. So, but it was great to go. It was great to be a part of it. And but when Andre came, once a year, it was huge. I mean, Andre the Giant's coming. And so you're going to go see him take on John Studd or Bundy, or because he's not going to come for a while. So they did things to fill those voids, month to month or every other month.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That was definitely the good old days. Of course, house shows are kind of few and far between at this point. I guess now, if you want to say a house show, you're going to go to an independent show for a house show these days.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Everything else is, for the big guys, it's on TV unless if they're bringing a house show to town, it's in a bigger market, and that's really about it. The days of a house show or the big guys going to small markets, I think, are way in the rear view mirror.
Yeah, for that is without a doubt. Well, fans, thank you for joining us this week on our show. Chris and I took us down memory lane of 1990, then back to 1985 in wrestling. Chris, I know you're excited about this weekend, heading down to North Myrtle, partying at Ocean Annie's, and who knows, I might show up down there too.
Absolutely. Come on down. The weather's going to be warm. Water's going to be great. It's the unofficial end of summer, and we're into September and into football season. And also the fall was also a great time for professional wrestling as well. And I know we're going to get into that as we get into September, October, and closer towards, I'm saying this towards the holidays, but it was also a great time for wrestling in its history.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to the fall. And of course, next week, fans, we are going to be talking Fall Brawl, and who knows, Chris and I might have a special guest, but you'll have to tune in to find out. But in the meantime, go like our Facebook page, leave us a message as far as what kind of topic you'd like us to discuss or what kind of guest you'd like to see on the show as we wind down the year 2022. And, of course, we will be winding down our seasons of the podcast. All that's coming up in the next few months. But, Chris, I'm excited, man. I hope you have a great – if I don't get to see you, I hope you have a great trip down to the beach and get to celebrate Labor Day weekend.
Absolutely, Tony. Same to you as well. And, I thank all the listeners for listening each and every week. And, enjoy the rest of the summer, a little bit that's left of it, and obviously the rest of 2022, and looking forward to what lies ahead. But we really thank everyone for listening, and tuning in and keeping up with us.
Yes, for sure. Well, fans, I am Tony for Chris. We will see you next week here on the Binge Buster Show.
Thank you for listening to the Binge Buster Show. Make sure you like us on Facebook and download us on your favorite podcast platform.